Hello, friends. This is Turn It Up. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Greg Larry, journalist, musician, YouTuber of sorts, and author. More about that in just a moment. But it's good to be here with you, so let's get started. Today we're going to talk about the Bob Dylan biopic, as it's advertised, called A Complete Unknown. It has moved to Hulu for streaming, so it's available to everybody who has Hulu, can see it now. It just went on Hulu last week. I'm going to share my thoughts about it. A couple months ago, I saw it in California when I was in Monterey on vacation. Saw it in a Cinemark theater and enjoyed it a lot. The movie is about Dylan's start in the music business, the period of 1961 when he left home and arrived in New York City in January 61 to 65, and his sort of break with the folk revival at that point. A large part of the movie focuses on Dylan's relationship with Joan Baez. I'll talk about Baez and how she was a star before Dylan was a star, really, for probably 2 or 3 years before Dylan became known. Baez was really the catalyst for the social activism at that time, which was creeping into popular music. You'll learn why I think it's more than just a biopic and how well they do with the time period, which is, I think, an important part of this movie. Did I learn more about Dylan? Dylan's kind of an enigma. But I believe I did, and you might be surprised as to what I learned from Dylan, so we'll share that. But before we get into the movie, I want to talk about something that I'm pretty proud of. I've written a book, and it just came out, a biography, while we're on the subjects of biography, on the life of Joan Baez, guitarist, the country music and bluegrass guitar player. There had never been a book on Baez. Baez was one of the first guitar heroes, first flashy guitar players that brought the instrument out front and became a picker, a country music star, and was on radio in the days of radio. He was in Richmond, Virginia. Then he went to Los Angeles and was the host for a show in the 50s called Town Hall Party, where he was the band director, and lived quite a life. Played many soundtracks, many recordings, played with Ricky Nelson, on movies with Robert Mitchum and Jimmy Stewart. There's 36 photos in it, so you can enjoy them, and it talks about his life. He was known as the King of the Strings, so the title of the book is King of the Strings, the Joan Baez Story. You can pick it up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, wherever you get your books at. Back to the movie, A Complete Unknown. It was produced by Searchlight Pictures and owned by Disney, so it was kind of a no-brainer that would come out on Hulu. It was released on Christmas Day, and it's based on a book by Elijah Wald called Dylan Goes Electric. The title, A Complete Unknown, is a line out of his hit song, Like a Rolling Stone. James Mangold, who also directed the Johnny Cash biopic Walk the Line, is the director on the Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown. How is it done? It's done well. On Rotten Tomatoes, they are a website which aggregates reviews. They got an 82% approval rating from critics and a 95% approval rating from the audiences. It's done well financially. As of March 29, 2025, it's garnered $135 million globally. That's 75 in the domestic market, 75 million, and 60 million in the international market. Considering it was $50 to $70 million budget to make it, it has been profitable, a profitable movie. The cast in A Complete Unknown. A lot of people may already know Timothy Chalamet plays Bob Dylan. Chalamet's now 29. What I thought was impressive was that he learned 40 Dylan tunes on guitar and voice singing them, as well as some harmonica. So that's impressive for me, being a musician, that he was able to do that. And he sings them in the movie. It's not a track he's singing to pre-recorded. He sings live in the movie, and he does a good job. He doesn't mimic Dylan, doesn't do an impression of him. He sings it in his own voice. It sort of sounds like Dylan singing Dylan tunes, of course, but he definitely doesn't try to do an impression. He does it in his own voice and sings the songs quite well. You have Elle Fanning as Sylvie Russo. Sylvie Russo, the actor in real life, was Susie Rotolo, and that was Dylan's first girlfriend there in New York City. Elle Fanning does a good job portraying Sylvie Russo. Baez is portrayed by Monica Barbaro, but we'll talk more on that later. Ed Norton acts as Pete Seeger, the father of folk music, and does a nice duet with Dylan when they sing When My Ship Comes In, which is a nice scene in the movie. Boyd Holbrook plays Johnny Cash and does a great job there, and Dan Fogler as Dylan's manager, Albert Grossman. What I'd like to say is that it's less of it's a biopic about Dylan, but it's also, I think, what becomes part of the star of the movie is the time period. It's set up between 61 and 65, and Joan Baez in an interview said that she thought they did a good job of capturing that atmosphere of the time. So the time period is really a star of the show. Dylan arrives in January 61, and his first thing he wants to do is visit his hero, Woody Guthrie. So he goes to the Greystone Park Psychiatric Hospital in Morris County, New Jersey. He's in not the best shape. He has Huntington's disease. But Dylan wants to meet him, and in the movie, as he says, to try to catch a spark from his hero. And they show that, depict that, and show that in the movie of them meeting. Dylan plays a song for Woody, which I thought was another good scene in the movie. Yeah, it captures the spirit and the times of New York City at the time. Also, there was a lot of tension. JFK was president, and we had the issues in Cuba with Russia wanting to put missiles there. LBJ was later president during that time period, of course, with the assassination. This was the hippie movement had not quite started yet. That was just before that had begun. Really showed the youth explosion. Young people were everywhere at this time. You had the baby boom after World War II, and there was just a lot of young people in the United States, and that was really starting to show itself as they were growing up. No cell phones. This was all of that and computers, so it was people communicating with each other, which was refreshing, really nice to see. I thought Ed Norton, he was on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and I thought he described it well. He says it's about how an emergent moment happens around an artist, creating this delicate moment where art, youth, and the culture of our country become all woven together so tightly that they were affecting each other. A whole generation was voicing itself through this incredibly young person in Dylan. I would say also add to that Baez and Pete Seeger and the others that were part of that. But let's get back to Joan Baez. Dylan is the central person, but Baez is really a catalyst. She, especially for social activism, she was very much into that. She was into nonviolence. She was friends with Martin Luther King, and she was introducing that to people, and it became into the popular music of the time. Monica Barbaro portrays Baez, does a great job, and she had never sang or played guitar or anything as well, and she did a good job doing that. Her singing's great. But Baez is interesting because she was really a big star before Dylan. People usually probably think of Dylan first, but Baez was, by 1959, was already selling out venues. She had, in that time period, she had 3 golden albums. That means 500,000 sales or more of albums. She had Joan Baez, followed that album up with Joan Baez 2, and then Joan Baez in concert. All of them went gold. And she was selling places out. She performed at Carnegie Hall at 18 years old. So she was doing good. And Dylan came along, and Joan Baez really brought Dylan out. She says sometime in an interview, I heard Joan Baez say Pete Seeger didn't introduce Dylan. I think she feels that she had a lot to do with that, and she certainly did. She brought him to her concerts. People were there to see her, but she brought Bob Dylan up on stage and kind of introduced him to the crowd. So she's a really important figure in the whole story. Joan Baez was on the cover of Time magazine in November of 1962, and they don't put musicians on the cover of Time magazine often, but they put Joan on there. In the article in Time, they described her voice as clear as air in the autumn, a vibrant, strong, and untrained and thrilling soprano. So Joan was a really big star. If you want to find out more about Joan Baez, there's a documentary out on her called I Am Noise, and it's a fairly new documentary, recent anyway. And I've seen that, and it does really tells you a lot about Joan Baez's life. Dylan and Baez met at Gertie's Folk City in New York City in March of '61, just 2 months after Dylan had arrived. And of course, things took off from there. And Dylan, there's a couple good scenes of them together. Monica and Timothy Chalamet, it's when they sing "Blowing in the Wind" together, and that's depicted in Barbera's apartment, in Baez's apartment. Real nice scene of them singing together. They also show them singing on stage, "It Ain't Me, Babe," which is also good. Dylan at that time was just prolific in his songwriting, with just amazing lyrics, and it was all new at the time. Nobody had heard anybody use lyrics like that. And it was an explosion of songs. I mean, he wrote many songs in a time period. "Don't Think Twice," "Masters of War," "Hard Rain Is Gonna Fall," "Girl from the North Country," "It's All Right, Ma," and several more songs that he wrote at the time. But Dylan was not a self-promoter. He quickly learned that he didn't like working with the press and all that kind of attention and that white-hot fame of the lights and the media on him all the time. He wanted to keep to himself and write songs and perform. Wanted to keep a mystique, be protective about what he is and what he does, and didn't want to see it get exploited or get overly used and become too famous, really. So it culminated in July of '65, and Dylan is invited to perform at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival. And Dylan had finally kind of had his... he still always played acoustic music, but he kind of had it with the folk movement, wanted to go in a new direction, and he played electric guitar at the 1965 Folk Festival, Newport Folk Festival. And that when he got that out and started doing rock music on electric guitar, the folkies weren't having it. They weren't real happy about that. I'm sure there were some there that liked it, but there was boos as well. And they noticed that Dylan had changed, that the folk Dylan was giving way to the new rock music Dylan, he just wanted to expand his horizons and learn new music, but it was very controversial when he did it at the time. Things I learned about it, I never really knew exactly what bothered Dylan about all that, because he was doing so well in the folk movement. I could see how it irritated him and got to him eventually. When you're called the voice of a generation, I think that was too much for him. That was going too far. Being the poster boy for the folk movement was really not what he wanted to be. He didn't want to be labeled, and you really learned that in the movie. You could see him get frustrated with the whole thing. There's a scene of him being in an elevator where he says, everybody wants me to be somebody, somebody else other than who he was. And so after that, when he performed at the '65 Newport Folk Festival, he got on his motorcycle and moved out of the city, moved up to Woodstock, New York. There's a scene towards at the end of that where he's getting ready to leave, and Joan Baez says, let it go, Bobby. You won. And he said, I won what? And he said, you're free from all of us and all of our crap, she put it. And but he had it. He was ready to move away from all of that scene, and then that's what he did. He left. That's where the movie ends. There's a gentleman, Penn Jillette, part of Penn and Teller, in an interview had an interesting description of Dylan, which I thought was appropriate. I found it a lot of insight in Penn Jillette's take on Dylan, and this is how he described it. He said, if there's a Shakespeare in our time, it's Dylan. He said the purpose of our art was to inspire. When you see a Dylan show, art just seems so good. You are inspired. The thing I love about him is he is a freak and not a cheerleader. When you see Springsteen, he compares Dylan's show to a Bruce Springsteen show. Springsteen is bringing us all together. We're all here together. He's a cheerleader and uniting us all in common themes. There's nothing wrong with that, but with Dylan, it's I am speaking for me. I'm digging so deep. He goes deeper into his heart and his brain. Dylan makes no attempt of saying, oh, this is going to kill them. This is what they'll like. That is where universality has to live. You can't be universal if you are trying to please other people. You can only be universal when you're searching clearly for who you are. Yeah, I like that description. You can only be universal when you search clearly for who you are. And he describes Dylan as doing that. I thought that was accurate. I agreed quite a bit. I'd never heard somebody put it that way. In closing, I'd just like to say I enjoyed the movie and learned a good bit about Dylan and why he does the things he does as best as anybody can. And he's still out there doing it. He's touring right now in 2025. Dylan is playing across the country, his never-ending tour, as he calls it. He's sitting behind a piano these days. Doesn't have background singers like he had with Baez and later with Clyde King, the great Clyde King. But he's still out there doing it, sharing his music. More power to Bob Dylan. Keep doing it. I think he will, as long as he can. I think he'll be out there doing what he loves to do, which is sharing his songs with the world. So, well, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it.